You've been told death is a door, a passage, something you walk through and arrive somewhere better, heaven, rebirth, liberation, the warm light at the end of a long tunnel. Every tradition hands you this story, and they hand it to you with confidence. But here's what none of them tell you. That first minute, the moment the body stops and whatever you are, continues, that isn't a doorway. According to the oldest suppressed cosmologies on Earth, it's a checkpoint, a processing system designed not to free you, but to recapture you. Built by an architect who does not want you leaving. The ancient Gnostics called that architect the Demiurge, and they left behind extraordinarily detailed accounts of exactly what happens the moment you die, accounts that were systematically burned, buried, and outlawed because what they described made the entire machinery of institutional religion look like a cage. This is what they found, and once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. Most people assume death is neutral, a biological event. Whatever comes after is either divine grace or simply nothing. But the Gnostic texts, and I mean the actual primary documents, the Pistis Sophia, the Apocryphon of John, the books of Jude, describe something radically different. They describe a structured system, an apparatus, and it has an author. I'm Daniel, and this is Gnostic Library. The Demiurge, from the Greek demiurgos, meaning craftsman or maker, is not God in the Gnostic framework. That distinction matters enormously. The true divine source, what the texts call the pleroma, or the fullness, exists entirely beyond this material universe. The Demiurge is a lesser entity, a kind of cosmic subcontractor, who fashioned the physical world not from divine intention but from ignorance. The Apocryphon of John, one of the texts discovered at Nag Hammadi in 1945, states this with unsettling clarity. The Demiurge believed himself to be the only God, because he could not perceive what existed above him. And here's where it gets cosmically significant. An entity that creates a world in ignorance, and then believes itself to be the supreme authority over that world, has every reason to maintain control over everything inside it, including the souls that animate its creation, especially those souls. The Gnostic texts describe the Demiurge as surrounded by assistants called archons, rulers each governing a layer of the cosmos. Picture it like a series of concentric shells surrounding the Earth, each one a checkpoint staffed by an archon whose entire function is assessment. Is this soul bound to return? Does it carry the divine spark, the pneuma that could allow it to escape upward?
Before we continue, there's something I want to place in your hands. We've gathered the forgotten texts, the ones the Church sealed away for 17 centuries, into a single guide for those who feel the pull towards something deeper. Because whether we speak of the archons, the demiurge, or the divine spark, one truth remains. This knowledge was never meant to be lost. This is for anyone who senses there's more to this reality than we've been told, and who's ready to remember it. You'll find it in the link in the description below, or you can scan the QR code right here. I'll give you a moment to do that.
Or can it be recycled back into the system? Now, I spent an embarrassing number of evenings going through the Pistis Sophia trying to map this structure. And I say embarrassing because it was weeks of notes that I eventually had to completely redo when I realized I'd been reading a 19th century translation that softened half the play. Language. When you go back to the direct Coptic translations, the architecture of this afterlife processing system is genuinely staggering in its detail. After my video on the Archon's reincarnation contract, a viewer named Elara M left a comment that stuck with me. She wrote, "If the Archons control reincarnation, do they also control what happens in the moment of death itself? Or is there a gap between dying and being recaptured?" That question is exactly what we're answering today. And the answer will disturb you. Because according to the Apocryphon of John, what happens in that gap in those first moments after physical death is not random. It is structured, deliberate, and extraordinarily sophisticated. The texts describe the soul rising immediately after death and encountering the first layer of archonic presence. This is not a welcoming committee. The language the texts use is juridical. It sounds like a tribunal. Your soul is assessed based on what it carries, the marks of its earthly life, the weight of what Gnostic tradition calls Heil material, attachment versus the luminosity of the divine spark within. Think about what this means for a moment. Every near-death experience account you've ever read describes a life review, a panoramic replay of everything you experienced. Mainstream interpretations frame this as a moment of spiritual learning or divine judgment. The Gnostic framework says something far more unsettling. that life review isn't for your benefit, it's an inventory. The archons are checking what you're made of, determining your next allocation, and this is where it gets personally confronting. Because the texts are explicit that the vast majority of souls, even sincere, spiritually motivated souls, carry enough material attachment to be redirected back into a body, back into the system, not as punishment, not as karma, but as maintenance. The Demiurge's world requires souls to animate it. You are, in this framework, both inhabitant and fuel. I personally think this is the most underrated dimension of Gnostic cosmology. Not the cosmic drama of the Demiurge versus the Pleroma, but the sheer mechanical precision of the soul processing system they describe. It is less like a divine court and more like a customs checkpoint at an airport. You cannot leave. But here's what's really stunning. The Gnostics didn't just map the trap, they documented the way out. The texts, particularly the books of Job and portions of the Pistis Sophia, contain something almost unprecedented in ancient spiritual literature. What can only be described as an afterlife navigation manual. Specific passwords, specific responses to give the archons at each checkpoint, specific ways of presenting yourself so that the tribunal assessment results in passage upward rather than redirection back down. As I covered in my video on the 13th Aeon, which maps the outermost boundary of archonic territory, the destination beyond all those checkpoints is described as a place entirely outside the Demiurge's jurisdiction, not heaven in the conventional sense, not a reward system, a return, a reunion with the Pleroma, the fullness from which the divine spark originally descended. But to get there, you have to know where you're going, and you have to know it before you die. This is the part that breaks people's brains a little, including mine.
Before we continue, some of what I've learned simply never makes it onto YouTube. That's why I started the Gnostic Newsletter, a free newsletter where I go deeper into esoteric Gnostic teachings, hidden wisdom, and the mysteries we don't share in these videos. And when you sign up, you'll receive a Gnostic guide to mastering reality as a welcome gift, completely free. You'll find it through the link in the description below or by scanning the QR code on your screen. I'll give you a moment to do that.
The first time I really sat with it, and honestly, I remember the exact evening. I was reading the third book of the Pistis Sophia at maybe 2 in the morning, and I had to put it down and just stare at the ceiling for a while. Because what the text was describing was a scenario where death preparation was not spiritual, it was navigational. Like studying a map before a journey through hostile territory. The Gnostic initiates prepared for death the way a traveler prepares for a border crossing with corrupt officials. You know the officials will try to stop you. You know they will challenge your right to pass. And you know that the only thing that gets you through is carrying the right knowledge, gnosis, not the right amount of virtue or devotion or karma, knowledge. Specifically, knowledge of your own divine origin. The Apocryphon of John frames this with devastating economy. The soul that knows what it is, a fragment of the true divine light, a spark temporarily imprisoned in material form, cannot ultimately be held. The archons have authority over everything that belongs to the material system. They have no authority over what genuinely originates above it. The trap only works on souls that don't know they've been trapped. Haven't you felt that, at some level? That sense that you are something more than what this world seems to allow? The Gnostics would say that feeling is not wishful thinking, it's recognition. The divine spark recognizing its own source across an enormous distance. Now, and this matters, the texts are also honest about how hard this is. The Pistis Sophia describes Sophia herself, a divine emanation, becoming trapped in the lower regions and spending vast stretches of cosmic time crying out for rescue. Even beings of extraordinary divine luminosity can become ensnared in the Demiurge's architecture. The system is not unsophisticated. It is designed by something that has had, according to these texts, the entirety of material cosmic history to refine its method. This is why the knowledge was considered so dangerous. Not philosophically dangerous, existentially dangerous, institutionally dangerous. A system that depends on soul recycling cannot afford for the recycled to understand the recycling process. The Gnostic communities that preserved and transmitted these texts were not persecuted because their theology was offensive. They were persecuted because their theology was liberating. And liberation is the one thing a control system cannot permit. The texts were burned. The communities were disbanded. The initiates were scattered or killed. And the specific navigational knowledge, the passwords, the responses, the self-recognition protocols for the afterlife checkpoint system was systematically erased from public religious discourse. What survived did so in fragments, hidden in codices buried in jars in the Egyptian desert, preserved in manuscripts copied by hand in secret, and recovered, largely, in a single extraordinary discovery in 1945 near a place called Nag Hammadi, when a farmer cracked open a sealed jar and found 13 leather-bound books that had been waiting there for 16 centuries. Think about that, 16 centuries of institutional silence. And underneath it, a complete instruction set for navigating your own death. So what does this mean for you, sitting here right now? It means the Gnostic framework is asking something that no mainstream tradition actually asks. Not, are you good enough? Not, did you follow the right rituals? But, do you know what you are? Do you know where you came from? Because in those first moments after the body stops in the gap, that viewer Elara was asking about, the only thing that determines your trajectory is whether you recognize the checkpoint for what it is, and whether you carry the knowledge of your own origin clearly enough to declare it. And that raises the most important question of all, one we haven't even touched yet. What exactly does that recognition feel like from the inside? What did the Gnostic initiates actually train themselves to experience at the moment of death? That's exactly where we need to go next. If this channel is somewhere you want to keep exploring these questions, subscribe now and hit the bell, because what we cover next goes even deeper into the navigational protocols the texts describe, and I don't want you to miss it.